Maria Bartiromo was right. John Podesta lied about Russia ties. Time to open an investigation. Hillary Clinton's former campaign manager, John Podesta, lied to Fox News' Maria Bartiromo last week when confronted about his ties to Russia. Bartiromo brought up Podesta's ties to the Russians, and Podesta said he had none. Bartiromo also brought up how the Democrats have stronger ties to the Russians. Maria Bartiromo pointed out to Podesta that it is the Democrats who have deeper and stronger ties to Russia. John, I gotta ask you about your own ties to Russian entities. You joined the board of a small energy company in 2011. 2 months later, a Russian entity directly funded by the Kremlin invested $35 million in the company. You were given 75,000 shares in the Russian company, which you failed to disclose when you became an Obama associate. Of course, John Podesta came unhinged after he was actually asked a tough question by someone in the media and immediately denied it. He answered, "Maria, that's not true. I fully disclosed it and was fully compliant. And by the way, I divested before I went to the White House." Bartiromo was not letting John Podesta off the hook easy, she immediately said. "But where did you divest it, John? Why do people say you divested to your adult children?" Podesta became visibly angry and accused Bartiromo of picking through his emails that were stolen by the Russians and released by WikiLeaks. Maria Bartiromo slammed him over his lies and ties to the Russians. She even brought up Hillary Clinton's Uranium One deal, selling 20% of the U.S. uranium to Russia while she was SOS. Now, the thing was, they got paid. Both Podesta and Hillary got paid through that Russian deal. It is unknown how many lies Podesta made during the interview. What we do know is that WikiLeaks has stated that they did not obtain Podesta's emails from the Russians. We also know that the DNC staffer Seth Rich, who was murdered last year, reportedly did provide emails to WikiLeaks. We also know that Podesta wrote in an email last year, as released by WikiLeaks, that he would love an example being made of a leaker, which causes many to think he was involved in Rich's murder. Dr. C. Cat, counter to think progress. I guess what Podesta meant by suspected leaker should be. I guess what should be made an example of. He really meant he should be tickled with feathers till, yeah. We also know from these same emails that Podesta was in cahoots with the media. At least 65 MSM reporters were meeting with and or coordinating offline with top Hillary advisors. The emails also showed that as early as December 2015, Podesta discussed Trump's bromance with Putin and the potential for using it as a means to slander Trump. As early as December 2015, Hillary Clinton campaign head John Podesta discussed Trump's bromance with Putin. You see? That whole scenario. We also know that Podesta went on a bloody rampage in another recent interview about the election. In the interview, he clearly projected himself onto President Trump. Donald Trump is unfit for office. A president whose actions are often absolutely crazy and whose White House has a complete disregard for the truth. We know from Podesta's own emails that Hillary Clinton bragged about being invited to Putin's inner sanctum. We also know that Podesta did exercise 75,000 stock options, as a result gained 75,000 common shares, as a result of being a member of the executive board of energy company Jolie Unlimited. We also know that Jolie Unlimited received millions from a Putin-connected Russian government fund, and that Podesta did transfer to his daughter Megan Roos his shares of common stock in this company. Again, we do not know the number of times that Podesta lied in his interview with Maria Bartiromo. Andrew Breitbart, the founder of Breitbart News, was not a fan of John Podesta, as can be seen in the following video warning on language.
This is a concerted effort. This is a concerted effort. Politics of personal destruction. Fuck you, John Podesta.
All right, well, you see where I'm coming from.
Okay. Yeah.
When I talk, that's because I'm interested in this ongoing, whatever the hell they're doing.
What's in your closet, John Podesta? Big Podesta? Big Soros? Do you want us to play these games? Because we're playing to win.
It's time that the Democrats, and in particular Podesta and the Clintons, are brought to justice for their illegal activities, not only related to the Russians in last year's election. Let's take a quick listen to this part here.
In the House, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, met with a House panel probing how Russia's interference in the 2016 election earlier this week occurred. One focus of the investigation, the hacking of Podesta's own personal email account and the release of his emails by WikiLeaks during the campaign. In recent days, President Trump has accused former President Obama of doing too little to address Russian cyber activity while he was still in the White House. Joining me right now is the former chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, John Podesta. John, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Maria.
So you met with the Senate Intelligence Panel as part of this investigation. What can you tell us? House Intelligence. What can you tell us about that meeting?
Well, they wanted to know essentially what had happened to me and what the effect of was on the campaign, the Russian interference in our democratic process, and they're probing what actually happened, whether there was collusion, and what are we going to do about it. They asked me not to get into specific questions that they asked me and my specific answers, but in general terms, they're taking a bipartisan look at this stage. You know, they had trouble in that committee when their chairman, Devin Nunes, was kind of working with the White House to try to both cover sort of for whatever had happened in the Trump White House and the Trump campaign, and particularly the Mike Flynn matter. But I think they're back on track with a bipartisan investigation, so there were members from both sides, and they asked probing questions about what had happened during the campaign.
Do you find it odd that there's been so much attention on the Trump campaign and the Trump associates and potential collusion with Russians when in fact it's really the Democrats who have deeper and stronger ties to Russia? I mean, John, I've got to ask you about your own situation, your ties to Russian entities. You joined the board of a small energy company in 2011. 2 months later, a Russian entity directly funded by the Kremlin invested $35 million in the company. You were given 75,000 shares in a Russian company, which you failed to disclose when you became an Obama associate.
Maria, that's not true. I fully disclosed and was completely compliant with, and by the way, I divested before I went into the White House.
But where did you divest it, John? A lot of people feel like you divested it to your adult children.
I divested it consistent with the advice that I was given by the White House counsel's office, and I was fully compliant and fully transparent about what
You're very
done.
clean, Mr.
And so
Podesta.
the fact that you're picking through my emails that were stolen by the Russians and released by WikiLeaks, and creating a story which is not true, is something that we have to deal with.
75,000 shares of stock in a Russian company? You were not given 75,000 shares?
I didn't have any stock in any Russian company. So go back and get your facts straight, Maria.
You see that?
That's not true, John. We know that you own 75,000 shares. You're on the board of Joe.
It's not a Russian company. They own less than 5%.
It's backed by the Kremlin.
I didn't own any shares in that company, Maria.
When you stepped off the board, you were given 75,000 shares from Joe Lee.
That is not true.
How many shares were you given, John?
Maria, I didn't have any shares in any Russian company. I was on the board of an American company that did business here and only here. The Russian company had a small investment in that company, and
well, it's widely reported that it's backed by the Kremlin. It's been widely reported that that company's been backed by the Kremlin, and they gave you 75,000 shares that you had to disclose when you went into the Obama administration.
Maria, you can keep leveling this charge. It is not true. Okay. They didn't give me anything. They had a small investment in a company I was on the board of. It was a clean energy company that was trying to deal with the issue of trying to produce energy, liquid fuel, from a biotechnology process. It was based in Boston, and the Russian company had a very small investment in it. And you could keep saying that they gave me stock, but they didn't.
Widely reported information here, John. There's also Hillary Clinton, obviously.
Maybe you're looking at widely reported information from InfoWars, but it is not true.
This is Politico, this is the New York Times, this is the Wall Street Journal.
No, it's
That's what I'm looking at, John.
No, it's not.
Then there's Hillary Clinton. Then there's Hillary Clinton, of course we know, who got $100 million from Russian companies after she allowed that Russian company to acquire 20% of the U.S.'s uranium. So the point I'm making here, John, is that there's much deeper ties to Russia on the Democratic side than there are on the Republican side. And it's just a head scratcher that this has been taking all the oxygen out of the room over Trump, when in fact it's been your team that has been in bed with the Russians.
Fox can do whatever it wants to do on this matter. The truth is that Vladimir Putin, at his direction, according to 17 U.S. intelligence agencies, interfered with the U.S. election to help elect Donald Trump. Why was that? That was because Donald Trump had adopted Vladimir Putin's foreign policy, lock, stock, and barrel. He was out on the campaign trail saying that NATO was obsolete. He was trying to make excuses for their intervention in Ukraine. He was talking about eliminating sanctions on Russia because of their intervention and their takeover of Crimea. And so, you could blow a lot of smoke, Maria, but the truth is Vladimir Putin interfered in the U.S. election, and I'm surprised you're not concerned about that the Russians would hack whether it's Republicans or Democrats, that they would hack commit crimes in the United States and then work with WikiLeaks to damage our campaign.
I am concerned about it, but I know that Russian meddling goes back decades, and I know that when we go to Russia, when Condi Rice used to go to Russia, they would put her in the same exact hotel room in the same place every year when she would go there, so that they could spy on her. The same thing happens in China, and I know that the U.S. does the same thing. So this is not a new story. But the whole idea that there was any collusion with Trump that's where the narrative and the charade is, because everybody knows Russia's trying to undermine the U.S., has been for years. That's not a new story. The story that the Democrats have been riding and this Trump collusion is simply not true, and we have no evidence of it.
Well, look, I mean, you're talking to the wrong guy. You should be talking to his people about whether they colluded. Mike Flynn was the was his national security advisor. He had to leave because he lied about his contacts with the Russians within a month of the campaign. When Sally Yates, the acting attorney general, told the White House counsel that Mr. Flynn had been compromised, they did exactly nothing until the Washington Post broke the story. So there's a lot to investigate here, and I'm glad that the House Intelligence Committee has gotten back on track with a bipartisan investigation. Senate Intelligence Committee is doing the same thing. Mr. Mueller's doing the same thing. We'll see where it all ends.
Do you think they are going to focus on the Democratic involvement with the Russians as well? Were you asked about any of these things from the House Intelligence Committee this week?
I have already told you that I was asked not to talk about specific questions, and I said I would respect that. Okay. But in general terms, I think they're looking at everything. Yeah. So hopefully they, I absolutely have nothing to hide. And I think the facts that you stated at the beginning of this program are wrong. And I think if you go back and check them, you'll find that
I'm checking them over and over, here, John, and it's not wrong. We know that you were given shares in a company that was backed by the Kremlin. You may say it's a company based in Boston, but it was backed by the Kremlin.
So all the questions that they were asking John Podesta in that closed-door meeting, they were asking it about Trump. Nothing about Hillary and him being connected to Russians and other things. Nothing whatsoever. I mean, this is like absurd at this point. It literally is mind-boggling.
5% of the, Maria, less than 5% of that company was owned was an investment by the Russian company. It was not a backed.
Why did you come on the board? Why was that company so attractive to you?
Because, you know, I've been a long-time activist on
sure
clean energy and on trying to deal with the...
This guy is a clean energy guy, really. You know, this guy is a criminal. You could just look at his face and you know he's a criminal.
Climate challenge, and this was a promising company. The fact that the price of oil has been down so long has made the entries into that space very, very difficult.
Yeah,
but it was what they were trying to do was to produce liquid fuel from carbon dioxide and from the sun.
Yeah, he cares about the environment.
It was an extremely promising high-tech company in the United States.
There's a real question about what the response from the DNC was when your emails were hacked. I mean, look, obviously your emails were hacked, the DNC emails were hacked. It was a huge deal during the campaign, and it may very well have swayed people in terms of the election. Now, Congressman Trey Gowdy of South Carolina is asking why a decision was made not to turn over the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's email server to law enforcement or intelligence agencies. When you got hacked, why wasn't the DNC got hacked? Why wasn't the DNC server passed over? Why wasn't it given to law enforcement and the intelligence agencies? Did you not want government agencies to investigate this?
Look, the Hillary Clinton servers were turned over to the agencies. With respect to the DNC, I wasn't involved with that. I was the chair of Hillary's campaign. That was a matter for the DNC. I don't know the circumstance of whether they were asked for them or whether they said yes or no. But I think that if anything, it looks like the FBI was fairly casual, maybe as a kind word, about the fact that they were what they knew, how much they were investigating. They were lackadaisical in their approach to the DNC. You know, so I think you have to look at the whole picture, and it seems like, if anything, it's on the FBI that didn't come forward and really inform the DNC about what was going on until long after essentially the horse was out of the barn door.
Why? I mean, is the FBI just politicized, John? Was that what it was? I mean, okay.
I have no idea.
Let me move past.
You know, it's disgraceful that they're asking him questions. They're asking him questions about everything but what's important. That's what I have to say. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.